When I heard, that there was a question, do you want to curate the Cambridge Folk Festival? I remember being immediately interested. I didn't know really quite what curating was, at that time, but I love the festival so much. So I was like, anything that would have me coming back to the festival is a really good thing. And then when I found out I'd be there like the whole time, I never get to do that. It's like I'm always in a festival, out, like go perform your set and then you're out the next day. And to have an opportunity to actually be somewhere for 4 days, and to experience the whole thing was just really irresistible. I think that festivals are a fantastic place to work with other people, because the thing is, as an artist, you are always on your path, and you're doing your shows night after night after night, and then, maybe you run into another friend in the same city, but they're doing their show the same time you're doing yours. So a festival is a really great opportunity to be able to say, oh, hey, we're playing at 3, you're playing at 7, let's meet up in between and then do something on your set. The Canadians really have a really wonderful thing where they really foster that with these workshop sets that they do during the day of all of their main festivals, and that's where I first started to kind of get that idea. And so I think it's a positive at any festival if there's an opportunity for artists to get together, and then also if there's an opportunity for them to then show that, to put that on stage is even better. It's like, because then other people get to enjoy that and watch people discovering things in real time, rather than, their sets that are set, which are beautiful, and that's one way of presenting art. But the other way, is really something that people don't get to see very much, the creation in real time, which is a great opportunity at a festival. Yeah, it's both the bane of my existence and the reason that I exist. The aspect of my music, which is all the different genres. I mean, and I think growing up, I heard a lot of different kind of music, and I think, as a mixed race person, which I am, from the South, but went to school in the Midwest, I trained in opera, and then I trained in a totally different way, in the folk way, by sitting at the feet of an elderly fiddler, and so I straddle a lot of different worlds, and I think that that early upbringing, kind of going from one race to the other, from one side to the other, fostered that, and then all the rest of it which came afterwards just kind of added it to it. And so now I'm I don't see any differences, especially when the history of, I'll speak for American music, when the history of American music and how it was forcibly segregated. American music wasn't a segregated thing. For a long time it was this, complex result of years of cultural intermixing that had nothing to do with corporations or commercialism or other C words that are negative. It was this thing that people were making. And then along comes the record companies and this desire to sell records. And so my idea of what music is and what folk music is kind of, it's like I see things a lot closer than I think a lot of people do. To me, Dolly Parton and Aretha Franklin are like that. You know what I mean? Old time music and bluegrass music are like that. Old time music and blues are like that. Old time music and just about, it's like there's not that much difference when you really look at it in the context of the historical reach and what human beings like to do when they're not messed with, which is to make things to come this way. So you have this and you have this, and our natural inclination is to find that middle point. And one way that we can do that without worrying about laws like getting married or worrying about communities is to do that musically. And so when you separate that out, it's false. It's a false separation. So I'm a very big fan of realizing that and going, don't let them dictate to us what we should like, number one, and what kind of music, to call this. It should be music in the middle, My picks for the festival, are really coming out of where I'm sitting right now, and that's as an artist of color in folk music. And I have been building this sort of, finding other like-minded people and sort of building this group. We've worked together in different ways. They've worked together, and the opportunity to sort of bring some of that crowd over, was kind of irresistible. It's, something that needs more highlighting, because folk music in the realm of people of color it's been strong for a long, long time. But then when you have the commercial idea of what folk music is coming along in the 60s, it turns into this Peter, Paul, and Mary and Pete Seeger and, which is not saying anything against them, but the idea of what it is shifts from the Georgia Sea Island singers and, Honey in the Rock, Sweet Honey in the Rock, and, these ideas of people who've been there all along, with a couple exceptions. You have Odetta, you have, Harry Belafonte, but the idea of who a folk singer is, and so that's something I've really been focusing on. Is it's not just a white guy with a guitar. An artist that I actually discovered from a recording that was made at Cambridge Folk Festival, Amethyst Kia. I think what she's doing is really beautiful, and she's choosing to live her life in a really truthful, honest, like, I am who I am, and this is what I want to play, and this is what I want to do. And I just think that is something that needs to be championed as well. It's like, she's a beautiful artist, and to, put that out there in the world, that she's like, I'm playing the banjo. You know what I mean? Like, I may not look like, who you might think plays the banjo. I've had to deal with that my whole, folk life. And she's just got this deep soul. When I heard her sing Trouble in Mind, or no, what was it? Oh Lordy, man, trouble so hard. It was like, there was somebody other, like herself, but also this other voice coming out, and that's how I know somebody's really tapping into something. And I was like, I don't even know what else she does, but I want to work with her. And so it's great to have her coming. And also Kaya Cater, who is a really beautiful clawhammer banjo player, and who I first met when she was, I won't say how long ago, because I was an adult and she was not, but we're both adults now, so. But, and I gave her what I showed her, maybe something I learned from Joe Thompson, who was a black fiddler from North Carolina. And, already she was amazing, clawhammer banjo player back then. I just remember thinking, oh man, this is awesome. There's another one of us out here playing, And so she's just really come into her own as a singer and as a songwriter, and has not afraid to say things, and I think that needs to be championed. And you have the Birds of Chicago, it's a husband and wife duo, and Allie Russell is from Canada. She's Afro-Canadian, and she has this mixture of Celtic, like her white side is like Scottish, and her father is from Africa, and she has this interesting perspective on what that's like, growing up in Canada, and knowing Scottish songs, like taught by a relative, and then people are like, well, wait a minute, that's not what a person who sings Celtic music is supposed to look like, and that the experience of Afro-Canadian is one that's even less represented than African Americans. There was quite a population that went up to Canada and affected things, and and their duo is just this really, beautiful kind of reaching across and melding of sounds. And it's just, lots of pure honesty in their lyrics. And so obviously there is that through line of, of people of color, in this industry. But I could not pass up the opportunity to invite Peggy Seeger back to the festival. She was here in 2015. And I got to see her and reconnect with her. She's been an witting or unwitting mentor of mine for a long time, and I've gotten to, spend time with her, and she's taught me a lot of things. And you know, she's one of the people that I look to, you know, what she's done, her uncompromising stance on what she believes, you know, and how she chooses to run her career, you know, where she could have made some choices that commercially would have been a lot bigger, but like she ran her career exactly how she wanted to do it, and she said exactly what she wanted to say, and she's very powerful in how she puts things, and I just think that that's really needed now more than ever. You know, she's never been afraid to say what she thinks, and but what she thinks is very well supported. You know, she's not just spouting off, she's like thought about all this stuff, so when she says something, it's got the weight of all that behind it, you know. So that was my exception there, and I think it's a pretty good one. I think it's okay.